On a cloudy, overcast August night in 1957 Tokyo, the cicadas buzzed and the crows cawed. But when the clock hit 12, they stopped as the clouds parted into two to reveal a crescent blood moon. A baby was born that night, and the world of music and anime would shift and change forever. A baby with overwhelming potential was born that night, who would stand above all. The one who would stand throughout the heaven and earth. He alone was the honored one, Shiro Sagisu. The child was seraphic in nature. The moment he was born into this world, he did not cry or struggle. He seemed to stare off into the distance with a cold, agency-laden gaze that only a few children of greatness throughout history have possessed. The building shook a bit as there was a small earthquake prior. The ceiling light rocked side by side as a man stood over his child and wife with his arms crossed. The shadows in the room danced as if they seemed to be rejoicing, but the shadow over this man's eyes, however, remained loyal. He grinned as he knew his child would inherit the Sagisu clan bloodline and the anime industry. The man who stood over him was known as the Lion of the East, or simply put, Tomio Sagisu, a prominent manga artist, animator, and producer. For Shiro, the past, present, and future seemed to be intertwined. He began learning the piano and violin at 4 or 5 years old, growing up in what he would later describe as a very rare situation, surrounded by the influence of his father, Tomio Sagisu, who owned and founded P Productions in 1960, a key company in television and film production. The Sagisu family maintained a dynamic, creative atmosphere, with Usho's work in post-war Japanese media and collaboration in animation and special effects, often involving Western stylistic elements. While details on Shiro's siblings are limited, the family was supportive of artistic pursuits. This ecosystem did more than carve the path of success for him. It would extend far beyond comprehension. The kind of success that would be immeasurable and go on to shape but also inspire the world of anime music. The music in anime that is widely overlooked. Shiro would bring indefatigable attention to it, and with his compositions, he would disturb the anime industry not through common mediums such as dialogue or imagery, but through the unseen sound. This is how he's a blessing to the anime industry. This is not just a biography or a list of achievements. It will be an adventure to see how his music operates within the stories and why this role matters more than it often is given credit. It often feels and is more commonly agreed upon that music is treated as a supporting element in visual media, including anime. Shiro's compositions reframe these assumptions. Shiro's compositions do not just live beside the narrative. What it does instead is often change the perception of the narrative, leading it to feel and being remembered differently. By examining Shiro's work of art, you will be, at the end of this, persuaded that music is not background or storytelling, but an indomitable force within it. From the early inception of Shiro's life, he's been engulfed by not only anime but also music. His upbringing in the entertainment industry wasn't limited to Tokyo, but had an expanded influence on Japan as a whole. Shiro's world was transfigured by his most appreciable influence, his father, Tomio Sagisu. This is what Shiro had to say about growing up in close proximity to the entertainment industry. Growing up in that environment, I had a studio right next to my home, and there were people working on entertainment day and night, just going in and out. So I was pretty much born into an entertainment industry situation. This early exposure meant that his music was like a second language or a veil wrapped around him that he could never escape. Along with the nuns who taught Shiro to play instruments at a Catholic monastery, he was absorbing the means and developing the contrivances to apply to global audiences and to write world-renowned compositions that would define his future work, gaining the power to ascend. Shiro's career started informally at 8 or 9 years old, where he would assist his father's studio as a golfer, and then by 10 or 11, he was already drawing animation cells. His education continued both inside and outside the classroom, as he attended junior and senior high near Nippon Budokan, where he learned jazz instruments including saxophones, organ, and the flute, while also experimenting with keyboards on his own time. By the age of 16, he was writing music and scripts for live kigurumi shows, as well as composing and arranging for commercial performances and emerging pop idols. He briefly attended university to participate in the Yamano Big Band Jazz Contest, but left after receiving the judge's reward. Aura! His official entry into the professional music scene came in 1978 when he joined the jazz fusion band T-Square as a keyboardist and arranger, contributing to the debut album Lucky Summer Lady and later Midnight Lover. In 1979, he produced independent work, releasing his solo album Eyes with his group Something Special, while also collaborating with artists such as Jennifer Ingram Brown, Takada Mizue, and Ishino Mako. Around this time, he produced music for the TV drama Tabidachi wa Akiya and worked on the Japanese soundtrack for the arcade game Pole Position 2. From there, Shiro quickly established himself as an arranger in Japan's growing pop and advertisement industry. His early output was important, producing up to 30 pieces of music in a month as a composer and arranger for J-pop and idol artists, all while navigating the technical limitations of analog recording systems. His entry into anime scoring began with the 1990 television series Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, which laid the foundation for his orchestral approach. His breakthrough followed with the landmark 1995 series Neon Genesis Evangelion, where his work as a composer and arranger became synonymous with the anime's psychological depth and skill, further strengthened by his collaboration with the director Hideaki Anno. He later expanded into film with the end of Evangelion in 1997, and across the 1990s and 2000s, he contributed to dozens of anime series and films. Shiro's influence includes Miles Davis' jazz innovations, particularly Kind of Blue, which shaped his sense of harmonic complexity and emotional depth alongside composers such as Kunio Mayuchi, Nino Rota, and John Barry, whose cinematic styles informed his orchestral techniques. He has recorded extensively in Europe, including sessions in London with the London Studio Orchestra at Abbey Road Studios, as well as in France and Italy. Throughout his career, he's worked alongside a wide range of musicians, artists, including Masahiro Ado, Takashi Ito, Hiroshi Murakami, Toshihiro Nichiuchi, Yoko Takashi, Megumi Hayashibara, Hazel Fernandez, Masamichi Amano, Miho Hazama, Akina Nakamori, Naoko Kawai, Io Matsumoto, Shiemi Hori, and Minako Honda. Shiro's early years were not defined by a single breakthrough, but by consistency, admiration, and putting himself out there, leading to the development of his inspiring sound. It was through this period of intensive output that Shiro began to shape his musical style, defined by experimentation and fusion. Shiro's involvement with jazz fusion band T-Square helped with his development. Shiro created a sound that merged jazz improvisation with accessible melodic structures. His work on Make Me a Star at Tokyo venues, where he arranged vocals, strings, and horns, laying textures in ways that reflected both technical and creative, was a step further. Although he left the band, this era left him with the skills to blend genres. Shiro would develop further, blending orchestral grandeur with elements of jazz, rock, gospel, and electronic music. His compositions evolved from pop-oriented style of his earlier into larger-scale cinematic scores like those in Neon Genesis Evangelion and Bleach the anime. Shiro would use recurring motifs and thematic variations, allowing musical ideas to evolve alongside characters and narratives. Doing so made his musical structure for the tone, the narrative, and how the story is understood. How Shiro stands out is not only how he blends music, but the way he layers sound to construct emotion itself, and his philosophy when creating music. This philosophical approach can be seen when he says, "I tend to first start with whether this character is masculine or feminine. And then from there, rather than thinking about the character's personality, I tend to try to think of the opposite side of the character's personality. Because it's important to know everyone has two sides to them, and their personality. And it's important to know the other side they typically don't show. This is beautiful because the thing that people often overlook in music is that thing that highlights the unseen. Mwah. Chef's kiss. His compositions often combine orchestral with choirs and electric sounds that often feel classic but contemporary. His compositions feel almost spiritual, accenting his nun upbringing with strings establishing a foundation, and the choirs feel at scale, while the electronic elements and rhythmic patterns give it a sense of familiarity with modernism. This layering allows Shiro to control pacing and build tension, but also allows silence if desired. This is the mastery that Shiro holds on sound in his current prime, a sound that's a blend between mortal and immortal. With that kind of control, Shiro seems to anticipate the story with his music. His compositions move ahead of the visuals, guiding the audience towards an agenda of the unseen. His music is understood before it unfolds, not only shaping how the scene is felt. His ability to do this transforms the music into a part of the narrative. These blurred boundaries operate at the same basis as show don't tell, as the music shows the truth as a physical action would. This shift in understanding is how Shiro prepares his work for deeper meaning. Let me paint a picture for you from the anime Bleach, in which Shiro was the head of music. Azien has been revealed to be the twist villain of the series, and Rukia is one of the main protagonists, but she has been drained of her powers. So Renji stands between Azien and Rukia while also being injured. Azien insists that Renji give Rukia over to him, but he refuses, prompting Azien to attack and cut Renji with his sword. Renji attacks, but Azien blocks the attack and breaks Renji's sword. Azien stands over the injured Renji, lifts his sword and proceeds to slash at him. But before Azien can kill Renji, the main protagonist Ichigo comes out of nowhere and stops the attack. Ichigo is also slightly injured, but together Ichigo and Renji team up to stop Azien. Renji sends a blitz of his scattered pieces of his sword towards Azien as a distraction, as Ichigo charges at Azien with his sword for what would be a critical hit that would change the tide of battle. However, Azien remains still, unreadable, without an expression change, and he stops Ichigo with the tip of one finger. Visually, this scene is restrained and built on the tension of the stakes of the battle, which shifts from the main antagonist having the upper hand to the main protagonist having the upper hand, ending with a twist, a scene defined not by what is shown, but what is about to happen. Now I want you to reimagine this scene without music. The action is still the same as before, with Ichigo blocking Aizen's attack, Renji launching a distraction attack, and Aizen stopping the blade with his finger. What kind of music do you think should be played throughout this sequence? What kind of music should play when Aizen tries to cut down Renji, when Ichigo arrives, or when Aizen stops Ichigo's blade? Without music at all, this scene would feel noticeably different. The desperation of survival falls flat. Ichigo's arrival doesn't have the same impact, and Aizen stopping the blade doesn't have the same gravitas. Stripped of music, this scene acts just as events that are emotionally distant. So now you're curious, what kind of music did play? When Shiro Sagisu's music enters the scene, everything changes. When Aizen and Renji clash, the music is ominous to the point where it feels futile for Renji to fight against someone so powerful, like trying to crawl up an oiled up bowl. Then, when Aizen stands over Renji, the music switches over to a soundtrack that invokes a sense of fear, like needles in your brain. This is when Ichigo arrives to stop Aizen's strike, and the music stops as to indicate that the tides have turned, but not in the favor of our hero, but as an even playing field. Then Ichigo and Renji join together to fight Aizen. This is when the music switches to Ichigo's triumphant personal soundtrack that we as viewers have heard again and again when he is about to save the day. The song, appropriately named Number 1 for our main character as he rushes into battle. We as audience are sure this will be another victory for our hero, but Aizen stops the blade with his finger, along with the hero's theme music. This is a classic case of subverting expectations. They used the music that audience was so familiar with to build up a sense of false security of victory. Then the act of stopping the music breaks that reality. The music themes and motifs have been planted throughout the series, ultimately telling the audience the outcome of the scene. So when these themes that we're so comfortable with are broken, it makes the scene all the more memorable and impactful, an act that would be impossible without music. This proves that the true force behind the moment is not what is seen, but what is heard. In the end, Shiro's work extends far beyond a single scene, across projects like Neon Genesis Evangelion, Bleach, and Shin Godzilla. His music defines them. In Neon Genesis Evangelion, the world is ending. The music is upbeat, while the lyrics talk about the disappointment of self and suicide. In Shin Godzilla, when Godzilla is destroying Tokyo, the music is sorrowful. Across each of these works, Shiro tends to contrast what is happening on screen to make it more impactful in the moment, which goes back to his philosophy on writing music that he said during the interview, defining pivotal moments. During an interview with Otaku magazines, this is what Shiro had to say about the Bleach anime. Question posed by the interviewer: how long does it take to write your compositions? How long does it take for one full TV series? And what was the case for Bleach? Great question. I want to do my best at all times. Bleach was especially long. It's a very long running series, and it's a very long process to write all the music for Bleach. Sometimes if I'm really focused, I'll write music for 24 hours. So at that point, there's no long or short because there's only 24 hours in a day. I'm constantly thinking of music that I'm writing. I'm very animalistic in the sense of how I write. I don't really think about the number of cores the anime could have or the number of episodes the series could have. I'm constantly thinking and trying to output as many songs as much as I can for the series, especially Bleach. It's my life's work. I try to give everything I can to the series and music of the series. Generally, how much freedom do you have writing music for an anime? And how much is the director in charge? What was the case for Bleach? I believe this is the most important part in any piece, whether it be in a live action movie or whether it be in an animation movie or any kind of soundtrack. The relationship between a director and me is the most crucial part in writing the songs and the soundtrack. It's very important to me to develop a good relationship and good connections with them, and to hear directly from the director what kind of piece he's trying to make. For me, I make music very freely, and so it's very important for me to kind of tell exactly how I can get that freedom from the director. If we're speaking from the director's point of view, the more freedom they give me, the better the songs I will end up writing. Especially for Bleach, they gave me a lot of freedom, and I'm able to do a lot on my own free will. Bleach itself is my life work, and it's my life itself. It's very important to me that I can write the music for it in the way I want to, and I feel that when I have that freedom and when I can write it in the way I want to, it's better for the series of Bleach as well. When Shiro is in cahoots with the director, his ability to interpret and expand upon director's visions allows his music to become an extension of the narrative. Is this the power of a man who's been blessed by heaven's mandate? On that August night, the world was blessed with a child who'd grow up with a boundless autonomy over sound. This invoked heaven's mandate that Shiro would govern justly, wisely, and in the interest of the people and sound. His work was of the Midas touch when assigned to animes or movies, imbuing sentience into all. Across east and west, north and south, his music reverberated around the world. That music is not just heard, but felt integrally to all narratives. Shiro ambulated across the plains of time, from when he was young with the nuns, to a teen with idols, to an adult in the industry. Nothing could stop him. He had inherited the world and he made good on it. And in his current state, he has no weaknesses. He has become invincible. He shrugs off complexities like it's nothing. He has become one with the sound, and he knows it. You can see it in his eyes. Shiro Sagisu is no more. He has become the seraph music chose. You made it this far, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more anime content. What is your favorite song from Shiro? Let me know in the comments, and I want to end the video with a quote from Shiro to his fans. Is there anything you would like Western fans to know about you and your music? One thing I really want my fans to know is that my fans and I are constantly connected. 20-30 years ago, it was hard to imagine the world that we live in right now. Because of social media, because of the internet, we can all constantly be connected at all times. So if there's something I want to voice my opinion on, or a song or a sound I want everyone to hear at that moment, I can release it and share it to the world immediately. That's a very strong connection. connection to have with my fans. I like to utilize that and make sure my fans and I are connected in a very strong way. I also have a Twitter, so I'd like my fans to follow my Twitter. It's a very unique situation for Japanese composers, but I actually travel a lot, whether it be to America or Europe, especially Europe. Whenever I write my name on anything, whether that be at a hotel or a restaurant or the post office, people recognize my name and will often talk to me and say, "Hey, you're the guy that writes music for Bleach." A quote within a quote, by the way. I can always answer questions fans may have, so I'd love it if fans would speak up and talk to me more whenever they recognize me.